In Thailand, Buddhism is more than just a religion. It's the spiritual bedrock of the entire nation. But what happens when that faith gets shaken? By money. We're talking about a persistent pattern of financial scandals that has really rocked the monkhood for years. So today, we're going to look past the headlines and try to understand the systemic flaws that allow this to keep happening. Let's dive in. Okay, so to really get this, you have to understand this one powerful idea. Money isn't just money here. In this context, it's framed as a great devil, a really powerful, tempting force that can pull even the most dedicated monks away from their spiritual path. This one metaphor, it just gets right to the very heart of the conflict. So what happens when that great devil actually makes its way inside the temple walls? Well, you have an institution that's built on renouncing worldly possessions, but it suddenly finds itself managing enormous amounts of wealth. And the scandals that have come out of that, they're forcing a really difficult but necessary conversation all across Thailand. And you know, the first casualty in all of this isn't just the money that goes missing. It's something way, way more valuable: the public's trust. Now, let's be super clear. This isn't about the thousands and thousands of monks who are living with complete integrity. The problem is, a string of these really high-profile scandals has cast this huge shadow of doubt over the entire institution. It's making people ask a really tough question. Is our faith being undermined by a system that's just broken? So what does this pattern of scandals actually look like? I mean, these aren't just isolated incidents. They're symptoms of something bigger. Let's take a look at a few specific cases that really grabbed everyone's attention. Take a look at these 3 cases here. Each one shows a different crack in the system. With Samayamam, you had an abbot who had sole, totally unchecked control over millions. Then, with the abbot of Muang, the line between what's personal property and what's temple property just completely disappeared. And the Dr. B case? It brings up the most basic question of all. When you donate money, who does it actually belong to? 10 million baht. And listen, that's just the cash an abbot claimed had gone missing from his temple. That doesn't even count a huge amount of gold. The sheer scale of money being controlled by just one person was a massive shock to people. And it led to an even more shocking question. And this is the identity crisis, right at the heart of the problem. When an abbot starts talking about selling off gold as his personal property, is he still a spiritual guide? Or has the system somehow turned him into a high-stakes asset manager instead? You see, these scandals aren't just about a few bad apples. They're symptoms of a system that has some deep structural weaknesses. So let's really dig in and look at what's actually broken. Okay, here is the fundamental problem. Monks dedicate their entire lives to studying the Dharma, to meditation, to spiritual practice. They are not trained in finance or accounting. But then, as abbots, they're put in charge of millions, sometimes even billions of baht. They're just expected to suddenly become expert financial managers. It's a setup that's almost destined to have problems.
And this skills mismatch, it creates the absolute perfect storm. A temple's entire financial system can end up resting on the integrity of one single person, the abbot. There are no clear rules separating personal property from temple property. Donations, well, they're a total gray area. And all this creates a dangerous temptation for some monks to become collectors, basically stashing away wealth for a comfortable life if they ever decide to leave the monkhood. The ambiguity is just baked right into the system.
So if the system itself is the problem, how in the world can it be fixed? Well, the answer, believe it or not, might lie completely outside the temple walls, in the world of politics. Everything ends with politics, and problems are solved through politics. This is the core argument for how to reform the system. The idea is you can't fix a deep structural problem like this in a vacuum. Without the political will to actually step in and draw some clear, firm lines, these issues are just going to keep popping up. So that political will would need to drive a really clear 3-step reform. First, the government has to formally acknowledge that there is a crisis of faith. Second, it has to establish new, completely unambiguous laws for how to handle temple property. And third, it needs to create independent bodies for monitoring and accountability. The goal is to stop relying on individual trust and start building a system that you can actually trust. And so that leaves us with this final, really critical question. The problem has been framed as a spiritual battle, a fight against the great devil of money. But the solution being proposed is entirely secular. It's laws, oversight, politics. So, can a worldly solution really save one of the world's great spiritual traditions? That's the question now facing all of Thai society.